There are several, what they're calling wildlife management areas designated along the Rockford Canal.
Yep.
Some in Wells County, some in Eddy County. And Reclamation has told me that they've transferred them to the Fish and Wildlife Service. So those would not be part of it.
Those lands wouldn't be?
No, because they aren't in the control of the Fish and Wildlife Service. So any of the right-of-way that Reclamation still owns would all be transferred. And every easement would be transferred, every title would be transferred, lock, stock, and barrel would all be transferred into whose ever name, I'm assuming Garrison. So, but not the wildlife management area. So you're familiar, there's some kind of weird shaped ones and whatnot. Those would stay as is.
Well, that's what I'm asking. You know, we farm on both sides of the canal, and there's 15-acre corner that's in grass here, and actually a guy rents 50 acres over here, and it's part of something. I mean, I thought it was part of the canal, but it's not. That's just there, but that's already managed by somebody else.
So is it signed as a wildlife management area?
Yeah, gee, I don't know. No,
No.
Sometimes they have those yellow signs, says North Dakota Game and Fish. No?
Do they rent it out for hay? And that kind of tells you, because some of those wildlife areas you're talking about, you have to have access from the canal to get to them. You have to have access from the canal roads to get to that hay field. How is that going to work?
Well, that's an interesting question, because Reclamation is like, not our problem.
Right.
That whoever took it over, if they chose, like if you put that into a use where there's no longer a road there, that would be an isolated tract. There would be no access to, and you'd have to deal with whoever owns it. Most of them though aren't like that.
Right.
I think there's only one. I think that I'm aware of that you have to get down the canal road.
Yeah,
the rest are close to walking distance or up a road.
See, most of that gets rented out. It gets rented out by Lone Tree when we have the hay sale over there, and that's separate from the Rockford Canal.
right, that's not part of the Rockford
But
Canal.
to get to those pieces, you have to be on the Rockford Canal Road. Some of them you do, some of them you don't. And so that's, because they cut them so often for management purposes, to get rid of the trash, and I think they hay them about every third year, somewhere in that range, third or fourth year. That's why I was asking that question, because
Yeah. So if the Rockford Canal is transferred, whoever takes ownership of the canal would have the control of the access to those tracks that you have to drive to, and that would be an issue to be worked out.
Okay, next question. So there's a lot of places where there's a lot of canal, through a low area. Can you sell the clay?
Yeah, you're going to be in control. Whoever
You
takes,
do whatever you want with it if you want.
whoever takes this property it's yours. The government no longer. You could sell the shop
Right.
or the headquarters
But
building.
what
You
I'm
could sell the
getting at
clay.
is when you take that dirt and sell it, is that going to create a different situation for drainage and stuff? Is anybody going to get, you understand where I'm going with this?
Yeah, so we have the embankment, right?
Right.
You could take that away. You're not going to bother anything. Now, if you start digging holes, you might change the drainage.
Okay.
What about the bridges?
The bridges.
Can I address that just a little bit first? With Reclamation out of the way, whoever has control of the land would have pretty much free reign. And I'll give you an example. I was involved with a title transfer down at Oaks, where an irrigation district took over an entire project. And they had 40 acres of land that sat idle that used to be an airport. And they sold it all. It's being farmed. Or some of it's business, it's all being farmed. And then prior to that, Reclamation transferred a drainage system to the Eddy County Waterboard. And there was berms. And they sold a lot of that material. So the real answer is that whoever takes ownership of it, so if Garrison had it and people wanted to deal with Garrison, they could come in and they could cut a deal. They could sell it, give it away, whatever.
Does it all have to go as one unit, or can you pick so many miles From
As
bridge
far as
to
owning
bridge.
it?
Yeah, as far as owning it.
I think it's lock, stock, and barrel.
I think the
Oh, my.
government wants
It's
it.
all or nothing.
I think they,
Well, understand this, it goes to a political subdivision first. Then that subdivision can sell parcels off, right?
Yes.
yeah, you couldn't.
Let's say Garrison Virgin,
Individual can't
Yep,
go
yep,
buy
yep.
it.
right.
They want a
Now,
political
and it-
subdivision to take it because it can't go back to them then.
Right.
If it goes to a private party and they don't pay
Yeah.
the taxes, it goes back
Yeah.
to.
Right.
So, so, you know, if you use Oaks as the example, the irrigation district took ownership of all the land, everything, the canals, that land, and then the stuff that they did not want, they sold off. You know, and some of it's irrigated, some of it's dry land, and they just did it. Reclamation was out of it. And of course, I would like to point out that whatever you want to do, I think dealing with the Garrison Diversion would be a lot better than dealing with the federal government.
Well,
That's an understatement.
case in point, you know, a few years ago, the discussion, I believe maybe Kip was here, but anyway, why didn't it get used instead of the pipeline to Fargo?
Get me started.
Federal
And
land.
the federal government was totally against it, right?
Yeah.
So would that be different now if this was the case?
We're hearing a different story for sure.
See, I just think that would have made so much sense at that time.
It still might,
That's true.
it still might.
We're
We've
gonna,
only made
we're gonna
10
take a
miles.
look at, we're gonna take a look at the McCluskey Canal.
Okay,
I just can't tell you how far it'll go. And your question about the bridges, I believe the counties already own the bridges.
Counties already own the bridge.
Okay,
So then that's our,
it already
I mean,
is.
if, it's already our baby if they go to heck.
Yeah, and that was my first question too, I had to look it up. Because that would be my first concern is the structures. Who owns them? Well, you already own them, so.
So whoever takes ownership would assume control of probably the easement that goes through the county land. But yeah, you already own the bridges. But here again, depending upon how the canal is gonna be used, let's say a bridge went to pot and you want to replace it with a culvert. Well, surely
Now you can.
they would be a lot easier to deal with than the federal government,
Right.
you know? So it does give you options.
See, if they ever wanted to use that for water, let's say somebody wanted to use it for water,
Or you could
a
close
lot
it.
of that plastic
We
is
take it.
gone. A lot of
Oh,
that
yeah,
land is
yeah,
gone.
well,
Not
or,
today.
They've been dumping dirt on there forever.
You know, at one time we did hear some of the landowners along the canal at one point were wondering if they could drain into it. Could they tile their property
Oh, yeah.
and then
Yeah,
drain
yeah,
into it?
yeah.
That is one that I've always heard over the years. I don't know if that's something that would interest Wells County or not, but.
What's gonna happen at the end, where it goes?
Well, right now, at the end of the New Rockford Canal there, you know where it ends?
Easton Rockford.
Yeah, just east of Highway 200, about a mile or two. At the end there's a buried pipe, I think a 24-inch pipe that goes over the James River. So right now, there is a connection to the James River.
Okay.
Oh,
And it could be 36-inch, I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
remember, but there's
follow
some.
you.
So that's why you see there's only a couple feet of water in the
so
canal.
there is an outlet for it then?
Yeah. You know, depending on how much capacity you need, you might need to up that. Depending on your use, I don't know.
So if the county owns the bridge, let's assume that, and it goes haywire, can you fill it in and not put a culvert in it?
Today, you'd have to work with the Bureau of Reclamation.
But I mean, once this is given out, who has the land on each side of the bridge to do what they want with it?
We do. Or the county does.
Well,
Yeah.
so we could push it shut, not no bridge.
Yep.
Okay, just curious.
You can do what you
Right.
want with it.
well, let's be clear, that the county would have a lot more leeway, but because there is an easement to pass underneath that bridge, there would still need to be some consultation, because
Okay.
I'm sure the easement would say that the county can't negatively impact that easement. You see what I'm saying? So there would still have to be an agreement, that you would say, we want to put in a culvert, and you would say, okay, let's get the details worked out so that.
You would
Make
still
sense?
have say what needs to be put in.
You'd have to work
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, we'd have to work together.
Easement, yeah.
I just, you know, just curious.
That would take a
If
very
we could
much
work
longer.
through a lot of those questions throughout that process, 'cause these are really good questions. We're giving you our best answers
Maybe we think
to
we
them.
should do that.
Well,
And
in my mind,
Garrison Diversion hired Dale to work through this process if somebody wants Dale to do it. Because did you tell me you did the one at Oaks?
Right. I'm the secretary for the Dickey Sargent Irrigation District. And when Reclamation proposed transferring those facilities to Dickey Sargent, I guess I was their point person on working through all
Sure,
of the details.
Sure.
And one of the very important things for everyone to know, Garrison Diversion, you know, we're still in the reconnaissance phase. And Dickey Sargent needs to find out what people would want and how we could use this canal. Because at some point, there will have to be what's called a memorandum of understanding signed. And in that, it addresses everyone's responsibilities, but the receiving entity also says what they intend to do with the facility.
Yeah.
And that's important because they have a lot of processes to go through. Environmental stuff, you know, I mean, it's just all kinds of stuff, and it's a public process. So anyone who would have any possible connection to it will be notified of it, given a chance to comment on it, and so on and so forth. And so for Garrison to tell Reclamation that they want to enter into this, they have to know what it's going to be used for, what it's going to cost, how it's all going to end up. Because obviously Garrison Diversion is not going to take ownership of it and have all that O&M cost or operation and maintenance cost unless they know that there's a reason to do it. And if no one comes forth with good alternatives to how to use it and how to pay for it, then this process will end.
So,
Right.
does Lone Tree have any stake in where and how and what and when?
No, this had nothing to do with Lone Tree.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're separate.
Yeah, I'm just asking
Yeah.
because that was, you know,
Originally, that would have been the reservoir
right,
that you would have released water and it would have gone into the New Rockford Canal.
right.
There's no
Just curious.
connection.
I live close there, so I was asking.
And if you're asking yourself, you maybe have asked yourself, it costs about, today, with Garrison Diversion maintaining the New Rockford Canal, it costs about $300,000 annually. I think, you know, you could trim that up some, but we have one employee, cuts the grass, sprays the weeds, make sure we're not causing problems on any neighbor's property.
And
But we
here's
don't
another
believe-
example to chime in, just for your information, we farm up against it. There's a drainage tile, because right where this is at, the canal kind of acts as a dam.
Yep.
So there's a drainage tile along there right away that gets pumped into the canal. Well, that individual, every spring comes out and turns the pump on, or if the pump's
Yep.
not working, he has to change it or fix it.
Yep.
So that would be an example of maintenance.
Yeah,
Oh,
But
yeah.
we don't blade the roads anymore. We
Right.
quit that, trying to cut back on expenses.
We used to use those roads, they were pretty handy. for hauling
They
hay
were
out
pretty
there.
good. And we'll go over to Eddy County and have this same conversation with Eddy County. If you want us to talk to your Water Resource District Board, or, you know, there's a drain down kind of by Oaks. They actually made a drainage Waterboard, right, for the Jackson drain that they created. I mean, there's creative ways if you want to do some of this stuff.
Have you guys been contacted by anybody yet that's interested?
You're our first people that we've talked to,
Well,
so you're the most important.
we'll take it, but we gotta think about it a month, right?
And you know,
Depends if Eddy County wants it or not.
this is.
Or you go together.
This is a process, and if you've got any ideas of what you want to do with it, you should put it out there. I mean, because you never know, you know.
Well, some of us are speculators, you may get it and not know exactly in the interim what you're gonna do with it.
Exactly.
Is that okay?
Yeah. I think we'd have to work
I
through
mean,
it,
to
but-
have a detailed plan as to what you're gonna do with it, that's pretty difficult at the time.
Yeah, you know, you're right. There should be, there should be a general idea.
Well,
Not a step by step by step.
Yeah.
Like for Oaks, you know, that was an operating irrigation project. It was, they're gonna use it for substantially the same purpose. Now, that doesn't apply here, but you should have some sort of a statement like that, like, we intend to use it to convey tile drainage water, or we're gonna, you know, I mean, anything, you know.
And I'll be very frank, but you know, let's be honest in that if you guys had great creative ideas about how to use it, you wouldn't be giving it away. Or the federal government wouldn't be giving it away. So in turn, I'm sorry.
Well,
I mean,
and I'd asked Kip this earlier on the phone, there's no way to have water in it that you could irrigate, right?
We're asking the same question right now, because we might take a look at taking the McCluskey Canal over. We're gonna ask them those legal questions. Any chance in hell can we move water from the McCluskey Canal to New Rockford? I don't know how to answer that, but I'm gonna ask it.
But that would be a game changer.
That would be a huge game changer. I just don't want
Then we want
anybody to
it
get too excited because I don't know the answer.
then we want it for sure. Wow, it's all speculation at this point.
Yeah,
In all
your reason
seriousness.
could be you want to be more in control of this huge water
Yes.
resource.
Just remember, that's just Stan talking.
That's right.
Dale doesn't have any cards yet, but I have 3 business cards. His information's on the back. So if you can think of any questions, any hypotheticals, you know, whatever.
All right, leave them with Dan, and then we can always get it from there.
But, you know, Bill, call Bill, yell at me, whatever you want to do. We can come back. But I think you kind of at least have the background right
Right.
now.
Well, we
Thank you.
appreciate you explaining a lot of things. That's
Right.
good info.
Most of the fence is gone. There's a
We've
little
taken
bit
out
left.
the-
There's
yeah.
a little bit left.
We've taken out most of the fence and put those concrete right-of-way markers in over the years.
Yep.
Because it was costing a lot of labor to take care of the fence, so,
And all the cattle guards are gone too, aren't they?
yes. There might be 4 of them left or something like that, but. You know, there's probably some equipment that could go along with that title transfer, and like I said, that shop and all that property in Rockford and the office building.
You know, and there again, I'm speaking for myself. What we would want is a detail as to how many acres, what does it include? Shop,
Everything
right?
included, yeah.
You
Kind of like an inventory of all the
inventory,
assets.
Yeah.
You know, and if there, you know, that's a question about if these corners, is there any land associated with it that would go with it?
Well, yeah, that's all
You
part of
and
the
Bill
canal.
can figure that out at the coffee shop.
Bill and I can?
In the mornings at the coffee shop, Harvey.
Well,
It'll be 34 acres every mile, but there's a 20-foot hole in it.
But there's some places, there's like north of Manfred there's a place, there's a pretty good chunk of ground there.
well, but that was the question
But
is
that-
Fish and Wildlife already
that is
have it.
canal. That is canal land, because we cut hay on it.
And there's a monster pile of gravel north of Ria Grauman's place
Yeah.
along the canal.
Yeah, does that go with it?
It would.
Okay, I mean, we would like a detailed
Information.
inventory as to what we would be getting.
We can get closer to that, but to be honest, working through the title transfer process, like say you entered into it, that's what would be negotiated. You would get the details, the
Okay.
exact
Well, yeah, we
details,
don't
but we can get you
exact-
close.
Yep, closer to it.
And of course, I think we also are curious about how many acres and so forth, and like, we've looked at this Onyx hunting maps thing and seen some of it, they've got some acres in there, but because every fee title that they hold, every easement they hold would be transferred to us, that, we will get all of that. You know, because there'll be a long list that lists all the current document numbers that are at the recorder's office for both counties, and that will all be included. And so at some point in the future, we will have a solid number on how many acres there are, and for sure which are wildlife management areas, which are off the table, and
Sure.
and like I say, if any of you do have even the plots guide that Game and Fish puts out, those WMAs are on there.
Mhm.
And so you can just look at that and you can tell. You can say, no,
What's what?
those are staying put. And so just any particular parcel of land, I can't possibly tell you right now, but right there is a good place to start.
Yeah. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay. Great, thanks for letting us come and help you.
Yes, guys, just keep an open mind here.
You have 30 seconds.
That's all I need.
All right.
So we had Western Products come out and look at the festival hall and the winter project. They gave us a bid or a price of, down with, was it 126?
Yeah,
Something like that.
it's in their packet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, did you explain the different?
We haven't talked
No,
about that.
we were waiting.
We wanted the expert here before we talk.
There's different ways to finance the project and pay for the project. I don't have that. I think Dan had that information from the sales
Yeah,
guy
we
or
got
not. Okay. So, good quality windows. I think the service warranty, everything is good. They couldn't help with the doors on the south side at all. They don't have anything to do with
Is
that.
that gonna be a separate issue there?
But that would be to replace all of the windows on the main level of the hall. And then Dan and I noticed afterwards that there are 3 on the north side that you have to access through the attic, which we didn't have him look at, that we might.
So this is none on the lower?
That sure is not on here,
Not
because
the
it does say
basement,
39
just the
windows.
main floor, bathrooms, kitchen, and all the way around.
Top ones are the ones along the cement on the basement, aren't they?
I think those are good. They don't,
Okay.
they don't,
Leak?
no, not that we could tell. And they're different
These open and
windows.
closed good?
You know, they crank out where these are with the wood frames on them.
So how do you open these?
They're the double hung or whatever
Okay, yeah.
casement windows. But I gave Dan a book or what, I mean, if you guys want to take a look at it, if you have other questions, the sales guy is more than willing to come and meet with you. He said he would honor the price. He's not going to go away in 30 days or anything
Okay.
like that. I think he had some discounts that he had put in for us. And Dan, I don't know you, we're working on a grant or had information on a grant.
I've reached out for 4 or 5 different funding sources in the state of North Dakota. Unfortunately, every time I call one of them, they tell me, I should call somebody else, and I do that. You should call somebody else. And what I'm left with is possibility at USDA.
That's a loan, right?
Well, no, they do have some grant funds available. Circumstance is, there's a lot of grant funds available for energy conservation. Okay, but to be able to pencil this and make it work in a building that's only utilized part-time, about the only thing that's gonna qualify in there is changing out the lighting as an electrical savings. And they didn't really wanna talk about windows to me, even though I know we would achieve significant savings, but maybe not enough to qualify for their grant, because it has to be something that you can prove.
Something full-time that's used every day.
And if you utilize the building more in the next year than you did in the last year, it would be hard for you to show that savings. Whereas if that building was in operation every year, kind of like a courthouse
Right.
or a school building, it's way easier to show that.
Sure.
So,
So what's your wishes, guys? Would they be available to get at this right away, or?
Yeah, they could be done yet this year,
Yeah.
yeah. And they could be done this year and paid for out of next year's funds. That was an option.
Let's, like
Or
everything
half
else.
and half.
Right, I think that was another one.
50-50.
Pay half this year,
Let's
half
just do it
next
and let
year.
Dan figure it out.
I think Dan has to do a lot of figuring.
But it's something that definitely needs to be done over there.
It does.
Yeah, I suppose I'll make a motion that we approve the window project. Sounds like a lot of money, but a lot of windows too.
Can you be more specific on what your timeline is? I mean, is this something?
To be
Do you
completed
want to
in
try and
the,
complete in 2025, or do you want to complete it in 2026? What's your wishes? Because we've got a year for this. I'm not telling you, I'm not even suggesting that money's going to be easier to come by in 2026. But
No.
you've got two pretty big projects on your plate here in 2025.
And we gotta do something with them doors also.
I know,
no,
but still.
I would have it completed by December of '25. You know, and I don't know how much specific you want to be as far as the budget. If you could somehow pay for half of it in fiscal year '25 and the other half in fiscal year '26.
I
Is that
believe
your-
that's workable.
That's my motion.
Is that your motion?
Yeah, you can
Okay.
always turn it down.
Motion made by
We've done
Stan
this before.
to do the window project, half paid now, half next year. Is there a second to it?
I'll second it.
Boone second. Now we can discuss it further.
Seems easier to swallow
The-
60,000 a year for 2 years versus 126.
The labor would change, it stays the same also, right? The
I
labor.
believe so, yeah. He
Yeah.
said he would honor
This
the
whole,
bid.
this is the whole package.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but, yeah, well, I put it off and we're gonna need it done, and if we can do it half pay now and half the other, that's just as good as waiting.
So we can only raise the budget 3% next year.
Yeah, I know, we gotta have other sources
I'm
of
looking
income.
ahead.
Okay, is there any other discussion?
I'll reach back out to them and let them know your decision, and I'll keep you posted when we get scheduled and
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Reach out, get them going, I guess.
any other questions for me on any of my other responsibilities?
Probably the
Everything's good?
So far, so good. Just never know. That's it.
Before you reach out to them, let's visit first.
Okay.
Okay. 'Cause we gotta
Thank you, guys.
deal with the historical society too. So,
What?
Yeah.
You don't have to let them know.
Oh,
if you want, you should ask for forgiveness, not for permission. Okay. Now, I don't think we'll have any trouble with them because the style is the same. But at the same point in time,
Should let them
you
know.
don't ask.
I know. You get whiny.
Is Tim here? Hey, Tim, come on up. Morning.
Good morning. I'm Tim Ross, I'm with PRC Wind, and I'm a senior project developer responsible for the Foothill project that we've been pursuing here in Wells County and in Eddy County for several years. And we wanted to stop in today, just prior to your consideration, later on the agenda, just to share a couple of our concerns. First of all, I want to share with you that I used to sit on that side of the table. I'm a former county, I'm from Michigan, and I was a county commissioner in the county that I grew up in, represented the district that I went to school in, obviously. And so I understand kind of where you're coming from.
That's where you got all the gray hair from.
That's absolutely right. And beyond that, currently I'm the county chair for our county Republican Party back home, and I also sit on the state central committee for the Michigan Republican Party. So kind of philosophically, the part of the country that I come from in Michigan, even though the state's kind of purple, my area is red, so very similar. Agricultural community, very similar to what you guys experience. Beyond that, I'm also the parliamentarian for our congressional district executive committee, and the last cycle at state committee, I was the parliamentarian for several of our state committee meetings. I'm not a registered parliamentarian, but I'm kind of a geek when it comes to Robert's rules, I guess. I kind of and really kind of into that stuff. So one of the things that we wanted to share today was our concern with just the way that the public hearing, the last Planning Commission public hearing played out. Not laying blame or pointing fingers or anything, but we were informed prior to that meeting that it was gonna be Wells County people who were talking at that meeting, and it would be good, if we were gonna invite anybody, for them to be Wells County people as well, so our participating landowners from this county. And so that's what we did. We didn't extend